Did you know? A global superpower like the United States was once just a collection of small colonies on the edge of a distant continent. How did they transform from a group of settlements into one of the most powerful nations in the world today? Let's explore the long and dramatic journey of the United States, from its founding to its rise as a global superpower. The beginning British colonies in America. In the 16th and 17th centuries, European nations began exploring the world. One of the most active was England. They established colonies in what is now known as North America. One of the first was Jamestown in 1607. Over time, more colonies were formed, eventually becoming the 13 British colonies along the eastern coast. Life in these colonies was not easy. Settlers faced harsh weather, conflicts with Native Americans, and limited resources. Despite these challenges, the colonies gradually grew and developed into self-sustaining communities. Rising tensions with Britain. Problems began when Britain imposed heavy taxes on the colonies. Laws such as the Stamp Act and Tea Act angered the colonists. They believed it was unfair because they had no representation in the British Parliament. A famous slogan emerged, "No taxation without representation." Tensions escalated with the Boston Tea Party, where colonists dumped tea into the harbor in protest. This conflict soon turned into war. The American Revolution. In 1775, war finally broke out, the colonies versus the British Empire. At first, it seemed like an impossible fight. Britain had a powerful army, a strong navy, and vast resources. The colonies had far less. But they had something just as powerful, the desire for freedom. The colonial forces were led by George Washington, a determined and resilient leader. With crucial support from France, the tide began to turn. And in 1783, Britain officially recognized American independence, building a new nation. Independence was just the beginning. Winning freedom from Britain had been a monumental achievement. But now came an even greater challenge. How do you build a nation from nothing? There was no blueprint, no guarantee of success, and no certainty that this fragile new country would survive. The former colonies were no longer united by a common enemy. Instead, they faced internal disagreements. Different states had different interests, different economies, different visions for the future. Some feared a strong central government, while others believed it was necessary for survival. Amid all this uncertainty, American leaders gathered to find a solution. In 1787, they met in Philadelphia at what became known as the Constitutional Convention. There they debated, argued, compromised, and ultimately created one of the most influential documents in history, the Constitution. It established a system of government built on bold and revolutionary ideas. Power would not rest in the hands of a king, but in the hands of the people. It introduced democracy. It divided power between three branches, legislative, executive, and judicial, to prevent any one group from becoming too powerful. This concept, known as the separation of powers, was designed to protect freedom. Soon after, the Bill of Rights was added, guaranteeing fundamental freedoms like speech, religion, and justice. A government of the people, by the people, for the people, and the world was watching. Would it work, or would it collapse under its own weight? Expansion and internal conflict. As the years passed, the young nation began to grow. Its population increased rapidly, its economy expanded, and its territory stretched further west. Driven by opportunity and a belief known as manifest destiny, Americans pushed beyond the original colonies. They crossed rivers, climbed mountains, and settled vast new lands. Territories became states, and the United States grew larger and more powerful, but expansion came at a cost. It brought conflict with Native American tribes who had lived on these lands for generations. It also intensified a deep and dangerous divide within the country, slavery. In the southern states, slavery was deeply tied to the economy, especially agriculture. In the northern states, it was increasingly seen as immoral and unjust. As new territories were added, a critical question emerged. Would they allow slavery or not? This issue began to tear the nation apart. Compromises were made, but they only delayed the inevitable. Tensions continued to rise. Voices grew louder, divisions grew deeper, until finally, in 1861, the United States was plunged into a devastating conflict, the Civil War. It was not just a war over land, but a war over identity, values, and the future of the nation. Brother fought against brother. Families were divided. The war became one of the deadliest in American history. For 4 long years, the nation was tested like never before. But in the end, The union prevailed, the country remained united, and one of the most significant outcomes followed. Slavery was abolished. It was a turning point, not just for the United States, but for human rights and freedom, rebuilding and transformation. After the Civil War, the nation faced yet another challenge. Rebuilding, the South lay in ruins, the economy was shattered, and millions of formerly enslaved people were now free, but still struggling for equality. This period, known as Reconstruction, was filled with both hope and hardship. Efforts were made to rebuild the nation and integrate formerly enslaved people into society. But progress was slow, and equality remained a long and difficult journey. Despite these challenges, the United States began to transform. Industries grew rapidly, railroads connected distant regions, factories expanded, cities rose. Millions of immigrants arrived, seeking opportunity and a better life. America was changing, from a rural nation into an industrial powerhouse. Innovation surged, new inventions reshaped everyday life. The country was no longer just growing, it was accelerating. Rise to global power. By the early 20th century, the United States was no longer a young experiment. Its economy was booming, its industries were thriving, and its influence was spreading beyond its borders. Then came a global crisis, World War I. At first, the United States remained neutral, but eventually it joined the conflict. Its involvement helped shift the balance and contributed to victory. Not long after, another, even larger conflict emerged. World War II. This war would reshape the world, and once again, the United States played a crucial role. With its vast resources, industrial strength, and military power, it helped defeat the Axis powers. When the war ended, the global balance of power had changed. Europe was weakened, empires had fallen, and the United States stood stronger than ever. It emerged as a global superpower. The modern era. In the decades that followed, the United States continued to expand its influence. Its economy became one of the largest in the world. Its military presence extended across continents. Its culture, music, film, technology reached people everywhere. It played a key role in global politics, alliances, and international organizations. But the journey was never simple. The country faced internal struggles, civil rights movements, economic challenges, and political divisions. Yet through it all, it continued to evolve. The Cold War era. After World War II, a new kind of conflict began. Not a direct war, but a tense and dangerous rivalry, the Cold War. Two superpowers stood on opposite sides, the United States and the Soviet Union. It was a battle of ideologies, democracy versus communism. There were no large-scale battles between them, but the world lived under constant fear. Nuclear weapons were developed, powerful enough to destroy entire cities. Tensions rose through proxy wars, espionage, and political pressure. The world was divided, and the question remained, would this cold conflict turn into a hot war? The space race. Amid the Cold War, competition extended beyond Earth. It reached into space. The United States and the Soviet Union raced to prove their technological superiority. Satellites were launched, astronauts were trained, and in 1969, the United States achieved a historic milestone. Humans landed on the moon. It was more than a scientific victory. It was a symbol of innovation, ambition, and human possibility. The space race inspired generations and showed what humanity could achieve. Civil rights movement. Back at home, another battle was unfolding. A fight not against foreign powers, but for equality. For decades, African Americans faced discrimination, segregation, and injustice. But voices rose, people marched, they protested, they demanded change. Leaders emerged, calling for justice and equal rights. Slowly, laws began to change. Segregation was challenged. Voting rights were protected. It was a turning point, a step toward a more equal society. But the journey was far from over. The Vietnam War. As global tensions continued, the United States became involved in another major conflict, the Vietnam War. It was complex, controversial, and deeply divisive. At home, many questioned the war. Protests spread across the nation. It was a time of uncertainty, where trust in leadership was shaken. And when the war finally ended, it left lasting scars, not just on the battlefield, but in the hearts of a nation. Economic growth and innovation. Despite challenges, the nation continued to grow. Technology advanced rapidly. Computers emerged. The internet was born. Industries evolved. New opportunities appeared. From homes to businesses to global communication, Innovation transformed everyday life. The United States became a leader in technology and research, shaping the modern world. The end of the Cold War. After decades of tension, the Cold War finally came to an end. The Soviet Union collapsed, and the long-standing rivalry faded away. It marked the end of an era. The United States stood as the world's leading superpower. But new challenges were already beginning to emerge. A new global role. With its influence growing, the United States took on a new role. It became deeply involved in global affairs. Peacekeeping missions, international alliances, and economic partnerships. It helped shape global policies. But being a global leader came with responsibility and criticism. Balancing power and diplomacy was never easy. The 21st century begins. As the new century began, the world changed rapidly. Globalization connected nations like never before. Trade increased, technology advanced, but new threats also appeared. Terrorism, cyber warfare, and global instability. The challenges were different, but just as serious. September 11 and its impact. Then came a defining moment, September 11, 2001, a day that shocked the world. Terrorist attacks struck the United States, causing massive loss and destruction. The nation united in grief, and in response, it led to new conflicts abroad and new policies at home. Security became a priority, and the world was never quite the same again. Social change and progress. Over time, society continued to evolve. Movements for equality grew stronger. Voices demanded justice across race, gender, and identity. Laws changed, attitudes shifted, progress was made, and though challenges remained, the nation kept moving forward, step by step. Technology and the digital age. The digital revolution transformed everything. Smartphones, social media, artificial intelligence. Information became instant. The world became more connected, but also more complex. Opportunities expanded, but so did challenges. The way people live, work, and communicate was forever changed. The ongoing journey. Today, the story continues. The United States remains a powerful and influential nation. But like all nations, it faces challenges, political divisions, economic shifts, global uncertainties. Yet through it all, one thing remains constant: the journey. A nation always evolving, always adapting, always striving toward its ideals. Because history is not just about the past, it is about the future that is still being written.